Hello and welcome to adfartech Venture Podcast. I'm Janvi Agrawal, your host, and today we have a special guest, Marc Jellema, CTO at Startup Bootcamp. With over 20 years of experience in data science and technology, he has a wealth of knowledge in analyzing, optimizing, and visualizing data-driven insights. Mark also has a background in working closely with startups through Startup Bootcamp, giving him unique insights into challenges and opportunities they face. So today, we are going to talk about the startups and their challenges. Before we dive into official Q&A, I would just like Mark to introduce himself. So Mark.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And thank you for the introduction. I think you covered a whole lot already. My background is over 25 years in the IT industry. I have an econometric degree from the Erasmus University, and right after my graduation there, when I had my Master of Science done, I actually went down as a self-employed professional for over 20 years. In the last 4 years, I'm Chief Technology Officer at Startup Bootcamp and in Leaps, but we will talk about that, I think, in the edit. So very happy to be here and thank you for having me.
Okay, Mark, it was great knowing you in your own words. But before we dive into the actual Q&A session, I would just like to introduce adfartech Venture as well. Okay, as you know, this episode is proudly brought to you by adfartech, a pioneer technology solution provider dedicated to innovation and efficiency, with a main focus on IT solution, IT resources, recruitment, and tech audio podcast. We have partnerships with over 50 plus tech giants like SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Pega, OutSystems, APN, Salesforce, Cloudera, Informatica, and many more. We specialize in services like ERP, app development, data and AI, MLA, blockchain, cloud managed services, UX, UI testing, and cyber security. We have a huge team of 20,000 plus experts in various fields who can work either on-site or offshore and can be deployed within 24 hours. And we also are big on hearing from tech leaders. So we have you here today as a guest. So Mark, should we dive into the Q&A?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so Mark, can you just tell us a bit about your journey on how you became the CTO at Startup Bootcamp?
Absolutely. So, in fact, 10 years ago, 2014, I had a startup myself, and it was called Tom Cabinet. And we were the world first platform to start selling secondhand ebooks, which is, of course, quite a crazy idea if you think about it. But we thought, like, if there's anything like ownership of real books, there should also be ownership of ebooks. And if you own something, you should be able to have the right to resell it. So I started that startup, and then I immediately saw that this solution that I was bringing to market was bigger than myself, than my network, and that was something that might be solved in Europe, if not worldwide. And that's how I came across Startup Bootcamp. Because they were already running their accelerators. And I thought, I mean, these guys know what they're talking about, and let's do the program. So I did, and I valued very much out of it. Also got to know the whole network of the founders that really helped kickstart my startup in Europe. Long story short, in 2019, I had to shut down because the European Court of Justice said we could not exist. I will not dive into the legal details of it, but I had to find myself some other things to do, which I did for 2 years. And then one of the founders came back to me and said, Mark, I need a CTO. Could you maybe join our company? And since Startup Bootcamp is really, it's not so much a company, it's more a family. It really felt like home. I said to Peter, I'm more than happy to help. And I never left ever since. So that's already 4 years ago. So that's how I came about with Startup Bootcamp. And my role in the company, as you explained, is now Chief Technology Officer. We might have some questions ahead of us what that actually entails, but I'm very happy of what I'm doing at a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so Mark, you do have an inspiring journey from being an entrepreneur to a CTO.
So yes, and go ahead, Jamie. So the journey is inspiring. Because when I was entrepreneur, I said to myself, I cannot be CEO and CTO at the same time. But from my heart, and I would also say hobby, I'm a very technical focused person. So I like to code myself and do all kinds of those stuff. So, yeah, becoming an entrepreneur was a lot of fun, but now having some people that I could actually manage and guide to do stuff for me is also a lot of fun.
Okay, that's really nice. So, Mark, as you know, like today, our topic is completely focused on startups, right? So, the main question that I have from my side to you is what are some of the biggest tech challenges that startup face today, according to you?
Well, if you look at their tech intelligence, and it really depends on if you are a startup that has something that you're tinkering with a bit of hardware, then you have other challenges than if you are software only. So let me answer both of them. First, let's go to the hardware part. Um, People would say that doing things on an agile way for startups, if you're making hardware, you cannot be running sprints and do it in a very agile way. Although Elon Musk, I think, showed us with the Tesla that you can actually develop an electric car with an agile approach. So I think the technical challenges of hardware is so much more of saying, what can I use that's already out there? What can I combine in order to find something new? That was actually also how the laser got invented and the mouse that we use for a computer. That was all existing parts that were just put together in a new fashion. And then all of a sudden it became something that we can no longer do without. So the technical challenge there is, do you have enough engineering capacity to actually get it done? Of course, on the software or platform side of things, um, especially now in this, let's say the last year and a half where AI really came into play, I would say that I would almost say having developers is becoming less and less of a problem. I'm not saying that we can do without developers. You still need them. But sometimes you needed a full stack developer, a backend developer, and a front end developer. But now, especially with Copilot in GitHub or whatever, there's a lot of, I would say, development work that can be done by a single person that used to take maybe 2 or 3 persons. So the tech challenge with software is more, do you limit yourself in imagination? The tech challenge is not, do I get enough service ready? Can I go to AWS or Google or Microsoft Azure or whatever? I think it's more on the development side than it is on anything else.
Okay, so it's basically more into the development side, as you said, and most of the entrepreneurs get confused on what can I use and how do I use it.
Well, yes, and I think as an entrepreneur, even in a tech startup, you should choose to get yourself a CTO because you cannot run your company and also be the technical driver at the same time. You need to have other people that can lift that off your shoulders, so you can fundraise your company or pitch your company or get corporates in. So I think that's for the entrepreneur itself. That's the main challenge. How do you get the right people that will support you to bring your product to market?
Okay, so you just concluded it for me. Like basically you just need a CTO who has like tech knowledge to help you drive your business, right?
Yeah, and a CTO, I mean, you can get a lead developer and that person 9 out of 10 times will do exactly what you tell him or her to do. If you have a super developer, he or she will also challenge you, say, well, you asked me this, but if we do it a little bit different, then we get a better result for less money. Well, those are the real good developers, right? They have a certain business sense. I think a CTO should be the one that bridges the gap between what the business thinks they need and what the developers can possibly build. Because so many times, and it happens still, right? If you're in corporates, then the salespeople or the entrepreneurs or what have you, they promise to customers certain things. And then there's a saying, right? You have to fake it until you make it, right? You can sell things that you haven't done before. But the problem is if you sell something and then the developers have to make it, that's where it becomes tough. So that CTO needs to be the bridging between those two gaps, saying, don't oversell. We can do magical things, but please be a little bit reluctant in just selling the world. Well, we're not ready for it. And that's where the CTO comes in, because he talks both business language and technology language.
Okay. So thank you for letting me know this. But what advice would you give to the startup looking to optimize their tech solution on a limited budget?
Well, first of all, go cloud native from day one, because they have many perks that you can use, many credits, and those are on Microsoft, Google, as well on AWS. So choose your cloud provider with your likings, but they have all perks. And then get yourself a development team of at least 2 developers, and you could outsource this, but make also sure that you have the design ready before it goes to the developers. And people would say, yeah, but designs can be very expensive. There are many platforms like Fiverr or other platforms that are out there where you can have a designer for just a limited amount of time that can at least kickstart your app development. So use all the things that are out there. You can do magic for the first year, maybe 2 years, living on a shoestring and getting all these perks in from the big cloud providers.
Okay, that's nice to know about it. Can you just let me know how important is data science in driving business decisions for startups?
Well, I think it's paramount. And of course, I'm a little bit biased because I come from a data science background. But I think we all learned in the last 10, maybe 15 years that you can do so much on an assumption, but if you have the data, that's where the real answers come in. So at the beginning, if you start your startup, you're not selling your data yet because you don't have any data, but you're just selling your idea. Moreover, you're selling yourself as a person, because investors that you will get on board very soon are more interested in the team than they are in the idea. But once your idea gets a bit of traction and you got your first customers in, that's when you start gathering data. And then all of a sudden, your second investor will say, well, thank you very much. You showed me that you can make your dream come true, but now show me your KPIs. Now show me your metrics. Now show me your growth path. And that's where the data gathering part becomes very important. And I think many startups, they start with just running, maybe gathering some data, but it's all over the place. And then all of a sudden, after a year, they find it very hard to make a comprehensive data overview. So don't let that hanging around. Start with a clear view on what kind of data you want to gather and make sure you store it in the proper way.
Okay, so it is just important to store the important data that you know that you might be needing in the future. Can you just give me an example of how a startup effectively use data visualization to solve a problem?
Yeah, so you can think of, for example, a business model canvas, right? You can write things on there, and it's a visualization of your key results and also your key supplies, etc. But if you go to a platform and fill in the business model canvas the right way, you can even visualize your market size and how quick you will grow into your certain sum. So it's not per se that you need a certain graph or a certain visualization, but some people, especially I would say partners, investors like to see tables, but partners like to see graphs. And everybody can set up a graph that tells me in 5 years from now I'll be a billionaire, but that's of course is unbelievable. So make sure that graph actually holds the right data points that you can actually relate to, or you can actually show proof of that you know your business.
Okay. So basically, you just have to be very precise about the data that you're collecting and visualizing. It should be practical.
It should be goal focused. Yes. And you could think of, in Europe, we have the General Data Protection Regulation. The EU actually said you cannot gather data the old-fashioned way that we did with big data. And big data, we said, gather everything, and later on we will think what we will do with it. Now in Europe, you're not allowed to do that if you talk to customers. If you talk to companies, you can, but customers, you can't. And they say don't be data hungry, but be very data specific. And I think in a startup world, that's also, you're looking for certain validations. You want to validate your customer. You want to validate your product. That's where you need to start finding your data.
Okay, nice. Can you just let me know, like, how do you balance the need of innovation with practical constraints for a startup environment?
Let me see if I can get your question right. So you're saying how can you balance innovation versus practical appliances? Is that correct?
Yeah, basically, there are some, you can say, obligations. As you said, like in Europe, you can collect data from customer. You cannot collect data from customer. You can just collect it from the companies. So, how do
Mm-hmm.
we make a practical approach to this innovations?
Yeah, so I think the main part, and I had a beautiful MIT postgraduate course last year, and I thank Professor Louis was there because he said it's important in the beginning, and this is as practical as it can get, to tell yourself, let me find out why I'm wrong, because in the beginning your idea might sound very good. And if you ask your family, they will tell you, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. But you need to go out there and ask people, what is wrong with this idea? What am I not looking at? Why is this not scalable? Because in the wrongs, you learn more than in the rights. And I think that is the practical route you should take with your data gathering. Start validating stuff. And an invalidation is as important, if not more important, than a validation.
Okay, so validating stuffs are more important and eliminating the invalid stuffs. So we have to make the bifurcation between the two.
Yeah, you really need to start being on the search for where am I wrong? Because trust me, your first idea will be wrong. Uh, but the sooner you know where your wrongs are, the sooner you will get on the right path where you will actually build something that's there to last and will amaze the world.
Okay, so related to this, I have a question in my mind. What are the common pitfalls you see a startup falling into when it comes to technology and data collection?
I think the main pitfall a startup has is that they own the product and not the problem. Let me elaborate on a little bit on this.
Okay.
Let's say you are a hardware startup and you've built the next big thing. You fall in love with your own product, and that's any entrepreneur does it, right? I would even say you start your company because you see a pain that you are able to solve. But then you come to see your own product with, I would say, a kind of like a biased view because you come to be really attached to the product, no longer the problem. Why is that an issue? Because then all of a sudden the market, so your data will tell you you need to pivot, you need to change your product because the problem you identified is good, but the product doesn't fit it yet. But if you're attached to your product, you can do one of the two things. One of them is sometimes startups say, nah, but then my data gathering is wrong. That's the same as looking at a compass that will tell you to go left in order to go north. But you say, no, this compass is broken, so let's go right. Hence, you go onto the wrong path. Or other things happen. So you really need to make sure that you are attached to the solving the problem and not fall in love with your first product right away.
Okay, so product should be market fit rather than your emotions are into it to make it run in the market.
Yes, and there would also be people saying, well, if we only allowed marketing research to drive what I'm doing, most likely the iPad would never be invented. Steve Jobs was one of the big inventors, or you can even say, was he a big inventor or was he a visionary, right? Probably both. But he said, if I ask people what they want, they will not tell me I need a little screen that can stay on my lap. So hence I would have never made the iPad, but I did, and it was a big success. So there's something there to say, but the idea should not come from market research. The idea is yours, right? The problem that you solve, that's yours. Take that problem and start asking people about the solution that you're trying to invent. And then ask them not what's good about this, but what is wrong about this. because you need to know why people would not buy your product.
Okay, that's nice. And it's really a valuable insight. Not many people focus on this. They just focus on the data that they get and try to make the market fit for the product rather than making a product
Yep,
fit in the market.
absolutely. Sometimes you say that you guys have a solution that's looking for a problem. That's the other way around.
So, in your opinion, what are the key traits of a successful tech leader in a startup?
So you were saying, in my opinion, what were the three?
What are the key traits of a successful tech leader?
Mm. So the key trait is you need to be able to talk to the tech guys as you need to be able to talk to the business guys. Also, be humble. Don't think that technology will solve everything. If you automate anything and the process is wrong, the only thing that will happen is you get wrong results faster. So, and last but not least, also make sure that you really build stuff that your customers are asking. And that customer could either be your technical or your founder CEO or your customers. Because technical people have a tendency to build stuff that they think is cool, but nobody's really waiting for that, apart from other technical people. So um, be I would say humble about what is it that the market needs instead of what is it that I'd like to build myself.
Okay, so basically, you need to be honest with yourself and not be attached to the product that you are making.
I mean, think of Easter eggs, right? Easter eggs is I would say, the dream of any programmer that you can build an Easter egg into something very cool. And they are all over the place. And Easter eggs are these crazy things. If you look, for example, at Google Chrome, there's a little video game that you can play if your internet is down. That's absolutely great, but no customer will buy. I mean, Google Chrome is free, but no customer will switch from Safari to Chrome based on that Easter egg. So the only people that value your Easter egg are your fellow developers, but those are not your customers. Hence, if you have time and you want to do this in your own time, feel free to do so. But don't waste valuable company time on building these highly technical stuff that nobody's really thinking.
Okay, Mark, I just really like the examples that you have given after every question to make it more easier for our audience to understand. Okay, so today we are done with the Q&A. Okay, thank you, Mark, for joining us today. It was great having you here and hear about the startup and the challenges and how one can overcome it very easily. And to our
Thank you again. Yeah.
so would you
Thank
like
you.
to say something to our audience before we wrap up?
I would say follow that hunch. If you have a hunch of things that could change or similar, I've been thinking about this quite some time. I cannot put it at rest. Follow the hunch. The hunch is driving you into something that could be the next big thing. So, and there's many reasons why not to start a company, but the main thing is if you do, at least you don't grow old saying, I wish I had. So follow the hunch, make the leap, and see what happens. Trust me, you will have a learning curve that you can nowhere near reach in any corporate. So I hope I made you enthusiastic about that.
Yeah, it was fun having you here. And to our wonderful audience, thank you for tuning in. We hope you had a great time diving into the world of technology with us.